It is never too early to talk about 2026 fantasy football. Never, ever, ever too early. And since we just wrapped up the 2025 season, now is the perfect time to talk about bounce back candidates for 2026. Which of the guys who were fantasy football losers in 2025 are going to bounce back with a vengeance in 2026? This is the perfect video for people who are not quite ready to let go of fantasy football, people who love staying locked in during the offseason. You are my people. And this is a great video for people who are getting ready for the offseason best ball drafts and who want to jump into figuring out the potential ADP value picks. And it's great for dynasty managers who are looking for some buy low candidates too. There is possibly no bigger victim of circumstances in 2025 than Breece Hall. On the surface, 11.6 fantasy points per game and RB20 finish might not seem like that big of an issue, but the average doesn't quite line up with the actual Breece Hall experience in 2025. I would know. I experienced it. The issue is that there was no middle ground here. In week 1, he finished his RB9 with 15.5 fantasy points in half PPR. In that very deceiving matchup there, they tricked us. That very deceiving matchup against Pittsburgh where both teams scored for a combined 66 points. Breece had 19 attempts for over 100 yards, and we thought to ourselves, my God, our man is back. We won. Then things started to tumble downhill very quickly. 2 finishes below 8 fantasy points. Then he bounced back with 2 top 20 finishes. Then he went back down again with 2 finishes below 7 fantasy points. Then he jumped back up again with 2 top 10 finishes, and so on and so forth. Snip, snap, snip, snap. Until he became completely unusable with Brady Cook at quarterback outside of the Week 17 championship week where he had a great game, but unfortunately you probably couldn't use him because you probably weren't in that matchup. Hall did the best he could with the circumstances that he had. It's tough to really thrive on the ground when your quarterbacks, plural, cannot throw for over 100 yards, but there is good news and why we should actually believe that a bounce back is coming. Hall looked excellent. There was no issue with him. He is very deserving of being a lead back. He is very clearly the top back on the market in free agency, sadly. Sadly, I don't know if the Jets will actually let him go. The best that we can hope for is a franchise tag and they trade him so they can get something out of him. It could happen. It's very reasonable. The Jets are not anywhere near being complete, and they know it. They tore the defense down. They are clearly aware. Paying a running back in a full rebuild is kind of stupid. Sorry. But the Jets do Jets things, so they might actually just tag him and write it out. But if they don't, here's the good news. I promise there is a good side here. The Jets have been through every possible terrible quarterback scenario here. They tried the aging veteran route with Rodgers. They tried the young retread with Justin Fields. Absolutely none of that worked. They have the 2nd overall pick and a ridiculous amount of draft capital. Unless something goes terribly sideways in the scouting process, they're going to walk away with a quarterback here. They're going to walk away with a brand new quarterback. And all we need is just a mildly competent quarterback for Breece Hall to be able to do Breece Hall things and bounce back in 2026. Honestly, there's not a ton that we have to explain with Saquon Barkley here in terms of why his 2025 season was underwhelming. General offensive issues of the Eagles aside, this was kind of bound to happen. 2024 was an absolutely outrageous year. Obviously, we clearly expected some regression, but the real issue wasn't that the stats were just going to come down. It's that the odds of him looking like the same player that he was in 2024 were just very, very slim. He had an absolutely ridiculous workload with 345 touches and 2,000 yards in 16 games in the regular season. That is not inclusive of the postseason work carrying all the way to the Super Bowl. And that is just the rushes. That is not total touches here. The man was flat out insanely used, had an aggressive usage, and that is really hard on anybody's body. I don't care whether you are 22 or 27 or 32. That's just hard. So a natural come down does make a ton of sense here. And what goes up comes down and is probably actually going to go back up again. So that is why we like to bounce back in 2026. We saw it with Josh Jacobs. He is my favorite reference point. I love using it there. In 2022, he had a very similar regular season usage to Saquon Barkley. And what happened the next year? After he had 340 carries and over 1,600 yards, he crashed. Of course, he crashed. And then what happened the year after that? He rebounded. excellent year with the Packers. Saquon will be a fun one next season because naturally he is going to fall outside of the first round. I would not be shocked if he fell to the third round of fantasy drafts. If he manages to bounce back in the way that I expect him to bounce back, the value that you will get at his ADP, because everyone is fading him due to the fact that he will be yet another year closer to being 30 on a Philadelphia team that looked a little bit sideways this season, obviously postseason pending. But he is definitely one to bookmark as a big bounce back target for next year. This bounce back is natural. You are definitely not going to get as big of a discount as you will be getting on Saquon Barkley just due to age. But realistically, we should see Ashton Jeanty go as a second round pick at best in 2026. The Raiders have done what I think is the right thing, and they are likely looking to do a clean sweep here. They have fired Pete Carroll, and they will have a completely new offensive vision, a new team vision in 2026. They secured the bag, the first overall pick, and they will definitely be drafting a brand new shiny quarterback. I know there is some debate on whether or not they will. They will. They should. They have to. It'll be a fun debate in terms of who that pick will be this offseason. But regardless, it is not Geno Smith and it is not Kenny Pickett. And that is all we care about. That is all we care about, people. The Raiders' issues are very clear and visible. There's not a lot of confusion here. And I do think that if management takes the right approach here and finds a mildly competent coach, this is somewhat fixable. The defense is not fantastic. Obviously, they've got foundational pieces. They've got very two clear goals this offseason in free agency and the draft. The quarterback, obviously, and the offensive line. They have to go and buy offensive linemen. They have money to burn. So again, that is the good news here. They have money to burn, and every single dime should be spent on an offensive line in the same exact way of the Chicago Bears, right? It works, people. If they can just draft a quarterback, which isn't even a question at this point, and focus free agency on the offensive line, do not be surprised if Ashton Jeanty turns around and has a top 5 season in 2026. This season was yikes on top of yikes with an extra side of yikes for Lamar Jackson. Oh my God. We have never seen a season like this from Lamar Jackson and the Ravens as a whole. Jackson finished as QB 16, averaging 17.1 fantasy points per game, and it was a little bit worse than that, honestly. It was QB 18 heading into the week before he had that good week 18 game that helped bring it up there a little bit there. But overall, this season was a mess. If you told me that Daniel Jones would outperform Lamar Jackson heading into the season, I honestly don't even think someone would have even proposed that as a joke, to be honest. This is not the first time that we have seen an injury-riddled season for Lamar Jackson. Underwhelming season from Lamar Jackson, but we've never seen it to this extent. He had roughly half the rush attempts of his next lowest season of his career. It is painfully clear that he was hampered with injuries throughout the entire season. On top of that, his supporting cast did supporting cast-ish things that we have been so unfortunately used to seeing from him. They were a disaster throughout the season with drops and lack of reliability. This was an insanely frustrating season for anyone that drafted Lamar Jackson because he was one of the first quarterbacks taken off the board, sometimes even the first quarterback. But this is just not the type of output that we can expect from a healthy version of Lamar Jackson. And yes, health has always been a crux of the issue with him. But prior to this, he had given us 2 back-to-back healthy seasons with 2 beautiful top 5 finishes. And to his credit, even though the Ravens were a complete mess all season long from the get-go, the first 3 games of the season where he was actually fully healthy, those were all top 5 performances. He had a minimum of 26 fantasy points in those. If there's one player on this list that I have no doubt will bounce back as long as he's healthy, my money is on Lamar Jackson. Lad McConkey had a very aggressive ADP for a second-year player. It was understandable. He had a very strong second half of 2024. We were primed for a Justin Herbert bounce back. We ran into an issue, unfortunately, that just straight up could not be solved. There was nothing that they could do about it, the offensive line, right? But the good news is that was due to injuries. That is something that will not be an issue in 2026, unless we have the same issue of them getting hurt again. But odds are their offensive line will be okay in 2026. The injuries were just too much. They could not overcome them. Justin Herbert didn't have enough time to throw. The volume was incredibly inconsistent. he did the best he could. Quite frankly, it's a miracle and really a testament to the overall strength of this team that they even were able to make it to where they could in the playoffs. McConkey's ADP is going to come down significantly because of this, because not only did we have the offensive line issue, we have the question of whether or not he is actually the true wide receiver one of the offense. Quentin Johnston, say what you will about the man, but he is clearly very coachable there. He has progressed forward every single season of his young career. Obviously, the stats will not show it for this year because he has played one less game than he did last year, and because obviously, like Ladd McConkey, he went through the same issues of the quarterback volume being inconsistent to the offensive line. And of course, Trey Harris did look really good as well, so we should continue to see increased usage from him. So obviously that will be more competition for Ladd McConkey. He will definitely be an important piece to the offense next year. But overall, I think Ladd McConkey should be a more reliable top look in this offense on a week-to-week basis. Perhaps higher ceiling there for Quentin Johnston, but on a week-to-week basis, the reliable wide receiver one should still be Ladd McConkey. And the discount that we are going to get on him will be very appealing. Instead of being drafted on par with wide receiver ones like Jackson Smith and Jigba, yeah, same round. Crazy, right? He will be drafted in a far more appropriate area with guys like Zay Flowers and Christian Watson and that wide receiver one-ish kind of territory there. So I think he'll be a nice value pick in 2026. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can find me across all social media platforms at It's Steroid Time. Make sure that you are subscribed, locked in, turn on notifications. We got more videos coming all off season, talking free agencies, rookies, draft, early rankings, and so much more.